What if the world's biggest weapons genius got trapped by terrorists and was forced to build the very weapon that would kill him? What if that moment didn't break him, but created a legend? Hey, this is Jessica Moore, and welcome back to Jessica Recaps. Today, we're starting the movie that launched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is not just a superhero story. This is the birth of Iron Man. And trust me, what starts in a dark cave will change the world forever. The story opened in the deserts of Afghanistan. A military convoy moved through a narrow road. Inside one of the vehicles sat Tony Stark, genius, billionaire, playboy, and the face of Stark Industries. Tony cracked jokes. The soldiers laughed. No one sensed danger. Then, boom, the road exploded. Gunfire rained from the hills. One by one, the soldiers fell. Tony jumped out, terrified. As he ran, something caught his eye. A missile with his company's name on it, Stark Industries. Before he could escape, the missile detonated. Everything went black. We flashed back to a glamorous award ceremony. Tony Stark was named the Arms Dealer of the Year, but Tony didn't even bother to show up. Instead, he gambled at a casino, living his best, reckless life. His best friend, James Rhodey, accepted the award for him, because that was Tony, brilliant, rich, and completely irresponsible. Outside the casino, a reporter confronted him. She questioned his weapons, said they were destroying the world. Tony smirked. He said if the world ever stopped needing weapons, he'd stop making them. Easy words. No consequences yet. The next morning, Tony rushed to catch a private jet. He was late, again. Rhodey waited for him, annoyed but loyal. Together, they flew to Afghanistan to demonstrate Tony's newest invention, the Jericho missile. Tony launched it. One button, one missile. An entire battlefield erased in seconds. The soldiers were impressed. Tony was proud. This was his world. Power, control, applause. On the way back, history repeated itself. The convoy was attacked, just like before, and Tony Stark was captured. Tony woke up in a dark cave, chained, weak. A strange device was embedded in his chest. Wires ran from his body to a car battery. Standing beside him was a quiet man named Yinsen. Yinsen explained the truth. Shrapnel from the explosion had entered Tony's body. Tiny metal pieces were slowly moving toward his heart. The device in his chest, an electromagnetic magnet, was the only thing keeping him alive. If it stopped, Tony died. No escape, no backup, just time running out. Then the terrorists arrived. Their leader smiled. They didn't want ransom. They wanted something far worse. They wanted the Jericho missile. Tony refused. He said he didn't build weapons for terrorists, so they showed him something terrifying. A room full of weapons, missiles, guns, bombs, all branded Stark Industries. Tony froze. His weapons were already in their hands. He realized the truth. He had no choice. If he wanted to live, he had to play along. Back in the cave, Tony whispered to Yinsen. Even if he built the missile, they would still kill them, so Tony made a different plan. Using scraps, metal, and a rare element called palladium, Tony created something impossible, an arc reactor. Small, powerful, limitless. It replaced the car battery, and for the first time, Tony could breathe freely. But he didn't stop there. Tony looked at old blueprints, then at piles of weapons, and said the words that changed everything. We don't build a missile, we build a suit. Day and night they worked, under pressure, under surveillance. Piece by piece they built a crude metal armor, heavy, rough, but deadly. Just as they finished, the terrorists realized the truth. They attacked. Yinsen held them off. He took bullets so Tony could finish the suit. With no time left, Tony powered it on. The Mark I was born. He stood up. Metal scraped the ground, and the cave shook. Tony Stark had become something else, something unstoppable. Tony tore through the terrorists, flames, explosions, chaos, but Yinsen collapsed, wounded beyond saving. With his last breath, he told Tony to not waste his life. Tony escaped, flew into the desert, and crashed. The suit shattered, but Tony survived. Moments later, a U.S. military helicopter rescued him. Tony Stark was finally going home, but the man who returned was not the man who left. That was the moment Tony Stark truly changed, from weapons dealer to something much more dangerous. Tony Stark returned to America a broken man, but also a reborn one. The first thing he did wasn't rest, it was call for a press conference. Reporters crowded the room, cameras flashed. Everyone wanted one answer. What really happened in Afghanistan? Tony looked at them and spoke from the heart. He said Stark Industries made weapons to protect soldiers, but he watched those same weapons kill innocent people and American troops. So he made a decision that shocked the world. Stark Industries would stop making weapons. The room exploded with noise, shock, panic, anger. Standing behind him, Obadiah Stane, his father's old friend and business partner, froze. This wasn't just bad news, this was a death sentence for the company. Behind closed doors, Obadiah snapped. He asked Tony if he'd gone insane. Weapons were their business. Without them, Stark Industries would collapse. Tony didn't care. He had seen the truth. Instead, he showed Obadiah the arc reactor in his chest. Clean energy, limitless power. Obadiah smiled, but not with pride. He said it was impossible, a fantasy, but in his eyes, something dark was forming. Back home, Tony worked in secret. He built a new, improved arc reactor. Faster, lighter, smarter. The Mark II. When it was finished, Tony tested it himself. No safety net, no backup. He flew into the sky, laughing like a kid. But the higher he went, the colder it got. Ice formed on the suit. Power failed. Tony plummeted toward the ground. At the last second, the suit rebooted. He crashed into his house, alive. Lesson learned. Next upgrade, anti-freezing tech. One night, Tony attended a high-profile party. He wasn't invited. He didn't care. There, the same reporter confronted him again. This time, she brought proof. The Jericho missile, Tony's missile, was being used by terrorists in Gulmira. Civilians were dying. Women, children. Tony felt sick. He didn't sell them those weapons, so who did? Only one name made sense. Obadiah Stane. Tony didn't call the police. He didn't call the army. He suited up. For the first time, not as a survivor, but as a protector. He flew to Gulmira and unleashed hell on the terrorists. Bullets bounced off him. Missiles exploded midair. But when civilians were in danger, Tony stopped pulling punches. He saved families, destroyed the missiles, ended the massacre. From the shadows, a legend was born. On his way back, U.S. radar detected him. They thought he was an enemy drone. Fighter jets were launched. One jet was destroyed, another locked on. Tony panicked and called Rhodey. He told him the truth. I'm the one in the suit. Rhodey believed him and covered for him. The military backed off. Tony made it home, but the world was closing in. Meanwhile, Obadiah visited the terrorists who kidnapped Tony. That's when the truth came out. Obadiah ordered the kidnapping. He wanted Tony dead, so he could control Stark Industries. The terrorists failed, but they recovered pieces of the Mark I suit. Obadiah took everything and murdered them all. Back home, engineers tried to rebuild the suit, but they failed to recreate the arc reactor. One engineer finally said it out loud. We're not Tony Stark. Obadiah's smile vanished, so he chose another path, a darker one. Tony thought he was fighting terrorists. He had no idea the real enemy was standing right beside him. Tony Stark finally started to feel like himself again, but this time with purpose. He asked Pepper Potts for help, not as his assistant, but as someone he trusted with his life. Tony told her to access Stark Industries' private servers, the secret deals, the illegal weapons sales. Pepper hesitated, but she agreed, because deep down she already knew something was wrong. Inside Tony's office, Pepper searched the system. Hidden files surfaced. Black market transactions, terrorist connections. One folder stood out, Sector 16. Her heart raced as she opened it. The truth was there, clear, undeniable. Obadiah Stane had sold Stark weapons to terrorists, and worse, he had ordered Tony's kidnapping. Tony wasn't supposed to survive. Before Pepper could leave, Obadiah arrived, calm, smiling, dangerous. Pepper pretended nothing was wrong. She talked, distracted him. Meanwhile, files copied onto a flash drive. Just then, a man appeared, Agent Phil Coulson, SHIELD. Pepper used the moment. She walked out with Coulson right past Obadiah. The trap had failed. Obadiah realized it too late. Enraged, Obadiah rushed to Tony's house. Tony never saw it coming. A sonic device froze him in place, paralyzed, helpless. Obadiah stood over him and spoke the truth. He admitted everything: the kidnapping, the weapons, the betrayal. Then he reached into Tony's chest and ripped out the arc reactor. Tony collapsed, gasping, dying. Obadiah walked away with his heart in his hand. Tony crawled across the floor, vision fading. Then he saw it, the framed arc reactor Pepper had given him, proof that Tony Stark has a heart. With his last strength, he grabbed it, installed it. Power surged back into his body. Tony Stark lived, and now he was angry. Obadiah powered up his creation, a massive armored suit, towering, brutal, the Ironmonger, fueled by Tony's arc reactor. He stepped outside Stark Industries, leaving destruction in his wake. Cars crushed, buildings torn apart. This wasn't business anymore. This was war. Tony suited up one last time, still weak, still damaged, but determined. The two armored giants collided. Metal slammed into metal. Missiles exploded. Obadiah was stronger, bigger. Tony was smarter. Tony flew upward, dragging Obadiah with him. Higher, colder. Ice formed on Ironmonger. Power dropped. Obadiah fell, but he wasn't finished yet. Back on the ground, Pepper waited at Stark Industries' massive arc reactor. Tony gave her one order: overload it. Pepper hesitated. Tony was too close, but she trusted him. She pulled the switch. Energy surged. Light exploded across the sky. Ironmonger was caught in the blast and destroyed. Tony barely survived. The war was over. The villain was gone. But Tony Stark's secret was about to change the world forever. Morning came quietly. Stark Industries stood damaged but standing. Obadiah Stane was dead. His crimes were erased from the headlines. Officially, it was called an accident. Unofficially, the world had just seen something impossible. Government agents swarmed the building. Among them was Phil Coulson from SHIELD. He told Tony the truth. The world wasn't ready for Iron Man, so they created a cover story. Tony wasn't there during the fight. The armored man was his bodyguard. Everything had been a training exercise. A script was written, every word planned. Tony only had to read it. Easy, right? Cameras rolled. Reporters shouted questions. They asked about the explosion, the flying metal man, the mystery hero. Tony stood at the podium, holding the script. His hands shook. Rhodey leaned in and whispered, "Just read it, word for word." Tony tried. He really did. But the words felt wrong, fake. He looked up, at the cameras, at the world, and smiled. Tony took a breath, then said the words that changed everything. "The truth is, I am Iron Man." Silence. Then chaos. Questions exploded. History was made. A hero didn't hide behind a mask, he owned it. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe was born. Iron Man wasn't just a superhero movie, it was a story about responsibility, about consequences, about a man who built weapons and chose to become one instead. If you enjoyed this cinematic recap, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Jessica Recaps. And if you want another insane story right now, check out this video on my channel, Only Guy on an Island with 6 Women, What Happens Next? This is Jessica Moore, and I'll see you in the next one.